Attention! The National Weather Service has issued a hurricane warning for the entirety of the National Hockey League. Please stay tuned for further information from the Storm Cellar.
Welcome back to the Storm Cellar. Ray, I am still living on cloud 9. It's a snow cloud because I'm in Massachusetts and it's not 80 something degrees like it was when I left North Carolina. It's like 14, but it's still, I'm still on a cloud. I still can't believe Cam Ward night, the Stadium Series game, the opportunities we had to meet people that, we've been talking to for a while. What an unbelievable experience that was. How are you feeling here, a week after?
I have to say it's hard to quantify just the excitement and the just the feeling that you had being there, meeting all of these great fans that we met. I was lucky enough to catch up with Laurel Wheeler. She was I caught her. She was actually the first person that I knew that I met, which was amazing. We had a great chat with her.
I'm definitely bummed I didn't get a chance to meet Laurel.
Yeah, and that was before that was on the Hockey Hall of Fame, or not Hockey Hall of Fame, on our Hurricanes Hall of Fame night for Cam Ward, which I can't even tell you the excitement I had for beating the team that shall not be named that night. That was probably as much fun as the fact that we were, honoring Cam Ward was the beating that we put down on them. So look, it was glorious. The tailgating through the roof on the Stadium Series, seeing the game
they still
outside.
got it, no doubt.
It was just everything about it. The whole vibe that was put out there. And I wrote on our blog, now do you see NHL? Now do you see doubters? This is a legit hockey town, and in spades. It was sensational.
Amazing. Yeah.
You bet. And so we have the joy, and one other note, we should probably throw this in, because and this is, we did a lot of interviews, and we're going to have a special that we're putting out. Brad is working feverishly to pull together all of the little round tables that we did with a number of guests, including the entire Surgecast crew. We had Mike Solarte on with us again, Colin as well. Like, we had a lot of
Haley,
people
yeah,
that we spoke to. Haley, who got it all started for us. So it's just a lot of great guests, lots of great discussion and celebration of the Hurricanes and the event. So look for that. That will be coming as when Brad can throw it all together. There's a lot of editing.
Brad did not take a laptop to North Carolina, so good for
No,
Brad.
Exactly. And that's
Brad
quite fine. There you go. That's quite fine. It was so much fun. On the show today, you know what? I'm sitting here doing all this talking, Brad, and while I'm yakking, I look over at the door. The door opens, and we've got our special guest into the Storm Cellar. We are welcoming, from the Hockey Writers, Jacob Billington, who another Canadian, which gives, that he gets bonus marks for that. But he's way out in Nova Scotia. Jacob, coming into the Storm Cellar with us. Thanks for joining us. How you doing this morning?
I'm doing really good. Thank you for asking. It's quite a cold morning. I'm not good at the Fahrenheit to Celsius changes, but we're sitting at minus 19 right now. So it's a cold morning, and we've got some rough weather coming in the next few days, but overall I'm doing pretty great. Thank you.
Yeah, mine like 4 or 5.
Yeah, minus and minus 19 in like Nova Scotia and all that water. It's got to be a little bit colder than the minus 19 that we experience here. We were down to minus 40 some earlier with that one Arctic thing that's now headed your way. Yeah. And man, oh man, stay warm. Okay, dude, stay warm. Holy cow.
It's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, no kidding. So in the Storm Cellar, we love to let people tell us their stories about how they became a hockey fan, a Hurricane fan. We've even had guests that aren't Hurricane fans tell us their story. That's what we're about. We're open to everyone. Always room for everyone in the Storm Cellar. Jacob, we want to hear your story. Tell us all about it.
Well, so I'm definitely on the younger side of a lot of fans, a lot of people in the media right now. So I grew up I grew up a Senators fan. And right when that 2006, 2007 run is going on, that's when I really started getting into hockey. So it was a great time. And ever since, I've always been a Senators fan, like since day one. But for the past probably 2 or 3 years, I've been not so much a team fan, but rather a sports fan. And then I picked up, I asked for the Hurricanes position at the Hockey Writers. And like, I just love following the team. The vibes are incredible, just on their own, and they built a really good team. And I really started following them extra close when they drafted Svechnikov, because I loved that pick. I loved the player. And so, yeah, it was just ever since then, I've been paying a lot of attention to them and saw a position open and decided that I would take it. So,
were you conflicted this week with the big contest?
A little bit. It was frustrating because Ottawa's just on the edge of that playoff race, but Carolina played a great game. It was hard to be mad.
Yeah, it was a pretty. I was a little surprised it came away with the like that was the shutout night, was it not? Yeah, that was the shutout. I was a little surprised because Ottawa had been playing really quite well, and they're kind of rising. They're no longer just completely out of the picture anymore. They're playing well, but it seems like the entire East is condensing and everyone's getting closer and bunched up. It's going to be a real kind of a spin of the wheel roulette to see who's going to be in, isn't it?
Yeah, and at this point, like looking at the Hurricanes' perspective, assuming that they stay first in the Metro, which New Jersey's getting pretty close, only 3 points behind, sorry. No idea who you're going to be playing in that wild card position. There's 5 or 6 teams that are like, there's a chance that it could be them. So it's tough to prepare. Like you look at Toronto and Tampa, they've known they're playing each other almost all season. Toronto going out and getting Ryan O'Reilly is 100% about we're playing Tampa. We need better center depth and defensive metrics. So it's hard to kind of look at that and decide what you need to bolster up based on who you're playing against.
Yeah, and the Sens are in a good spot. I mean, they have 2 or 3 games in hand on a couple of teams, and they're not that many points behind, so they're definitely in the mix. If you look at it on the website, it looks like they're way down, but they're really in there, especially with the Caps looks like they might be deciding to sell. The Islanders picked up Bo Horvat, but so far, that's been kind of it's been fine, but there's been no great upward movement from them. So, and I gotta admit, I still seeing DeBrincat go to Ottawa, like what a pickup for you guys. Like that kid's just phenomenal. I still wish he could have been a Kane, but
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see where that goes, if he wants to sign long term this summer or not, or if he gets dealt to the draft again. I don't know, but it was a great deal, first, second, and third. So,
and real quick, because I have a broadcasting history for myself in my career and stuff. How did you get into the journalism aspect of it, the writing? Tell me about that.
So ever since I was younger, like 16, 17, 18, I've always been super interested, especially in the prospects. So there was, I don't know how many people listening to this would know who Claire McManus is, but she started a website, and when I saw that she was starting it, I said, can I do a few profiles for you? And I did that. It didn't stick, but I really enjoyed doing it. And so since then, my first actual writing position was with HockeyBuzz, with the Winnipeg Jets, and that was just one of the openings that they had. I also liked the Jets, but it was kind of a non-biased situation. And since then, like I loved it. I still have the position at HockeyBuzz, but then I also picked up the Hurricanes and just started writing for the Senators at the HockeyWriters. So I've always been kind of interested in it. I know a few broadcasters personally, and I love what they do, and I just love the media aspect of it.
A real quick question here for you. How when you're looking at writing for a team like Winnipeg, who you don't really have an emotional tie to,
Yeah.
and then writing for Ottawa, how does that change for you? Do you find it difficult to stay objective on teams that you just love? You know what I mean? Because that can be really, I can say it's very difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably the most difficult part of it is overvaluing your own prospects. And I'm starting to get there with Winnipeg too, because I've been writing for them for so long. I'm starting to love the team, love the system. And so when I'm writing for Ottawa, like I'll run it by a couple of people that don't really have that emotional connection. I'll say, like, am I super crazy for suggesting this? I will say one piece that I have in the works right now is whether or not Erik Karlsson's number 65 should be retired in Ottawa. Now, I love Erik Karlsson. He was one of my favorite players in NHL history. Watching that 2012 to 2017 run, he was just one of the best players in the world. So personally, I say absolutely he should be retired. But looking at the whole big picture, am I alone on that or not? So I'll put out a poll on Twitter. I'll ask a couple of people that aren't really connected to the team and just kind of get an idea of where I'm at.
He was such an integral part of the Senators. I see your reasoning for it and the belief that it should, right? But it's one of those things where how long ago was that? And what he's doing this year certainly is, I don't know if I don't think that's a negative effect on shining a brighter light on him now as opposed to his days with the Senators. I don't think so, but that's an interesting situation.
Yeah, and this is his best career year, and probably will be. This will be the best year of his entire career. And when he goes into the Hockey Hall of Fame, he will be a Shark. So that's what kind of puts me on the edge. So I don't know. It's a tough conversation.
Although some people are saying there's a trade coming for him. What do you think? What do you think of that? Do you think anyone's going to be able to work that contract out?
All the rumors point to Edmonton. I would love to see it in Edmonton. Erik Karlsson and Connor McDavid on the power play, and then obviously you have Nugent Hopkins, Hyman, Draisaitl that are all having fantastic years, and adding Karlsson onto that blue line it'd be so fun to watch. Just a cheat code.
It would absolutely would be.
Yeah.
No, Jacob, Brad and I, we're going to take a little bit of time here. I know we're going to get to the games of the week and stuff, but let's really break down Cam Ward's night, the Hall of Fame game, and the Stadium Series. Brad, take us away here. Where do we let's start on that Thursday night. The ceremony was tremendous, I have to say.
So forgive me, Ray, for I am about to sin. Big respect to Martin St. Louis and the Montreal Canadiens for coming out and being on the bench during the ceremony. I thought that was really classy and well done. I know Ray agrees with me. I'm kind of giving Ray a hard time about the team that shall not be named.
It might be the only time. Sorry, there's two times where I have good things to say. One was about Carey Price. I've always had respect for him, but St. Louis bringing the team out for it, and he deserved to get the tip of the cap. There, Trip Tracy noted him, and they deserved every bit of it. So there's mark the tape. Raymond has said something good about the team that shall not be named. It might be the last time.
It might. And then, of course, Canadian fans turn around and talk about, somebody was spreading, the Stadium Series is sold out because the Hurricanes were giving out free tickets. To which I replied, le bleu, blanc et salé. The blue, the white, and the salty. So
the very, very,
it's I'm trying to give y'all points. What Martin St. Louis did was, I thought, phenomenal. And then
it was.
Then it's so maybe it's just the fans. Nah, it's also them. But no, the Cam Ward presentation, the number of people and the players that came back to do their little vignettes and things, I thought was phenomenal. guys we haven't seen in a long time. And a bunch of guys are still in Raleigh, but some of those guys are not. And to see the people who came back for this whole week, like for the Cam Ward game, for the alumni game, the guys who were around for the Stadium Series, was just tremendous. Fan Fest was just absolutely tremendous. Not to mention the whooping that the Canes put on the Habs for Cam Ward night. Cam Ward, I thought his speech was great. He was, barely short to the point. You could tell, I think it really meant a lot to him. And kind of like when Ray asked you a few minutes ago, Jacob, about, covering a team who you could be more objective about versus not. And Cam Ward's one of those figures when it comes to, like, should they retire his jersey? Like, that's still a debate in Carolina, right? Because as good as he was, if you look at the whole body of work, how much of that is him versus the people around him. And, and for people who love Cam, like, they'll fight you, like, oh yeah, his jersey should be up there. I'm one of those people I could go either way, so it's, but it's hard too. I mean, we see the same thing like with the Jarvis and Meyer stuff that we'll get to maybe a little bit, but I thought Cam Ward night was absolutely exceptional for me. And I said this to a few people, I think in person, Ray, is smells like when you walk into the concourse, it's, now it smells like barbecue nachos and Storm Brews and Dippin' Dots, and that's all great. But when you actually walk into the bowl and you can feel the cold coming off of the ice, I always stop for a second, take a big, deep breath, and just PNC, every arena has kind of a unique smell. And as soon as I smelled it, I felt like I was back in Raleigh before I moved north in 2008. And I loved every second of it. It was a tremendous night.
Wasn't it? It was just great from start to finish. And so many people made the trip from all over. I mean, this was the thing. If you were going to the Stadium Series, you found a great many people said, I'm going to be there to celebrate Cam Ward as well. Yeah. And I am one of the guys who thinks that his number should be in the rafters. I think on one fact alone, and it's the rookie Conn Smythe winning, Stanley Cup winning goaltender. There's only 3, and he's one of them. That's worthy of going up. That's worthy of going up. So I would look, Seth Jarvis, what I loved, Seth Jarvis, I mean, aside from hanging a hattie on them, it was the fan. Do you think the fans had any influence on Rod getting out there, or he was going to put him the whole time? Because near the end of the game, the penalty kill, Seth Jarvis, not a penalty killer. He just isn't. And all you could hear, everyone, we want Seth, people are chanting it, trying to get him on the ice. Suddenly he jumps on, and instant reward. He goes down and scores that goal. I launch a very valuable hat.
I was going to say, I have 2 anecdotes, and one is yours.
Yeah.
So tell the people, Jacob, this is amazing. Tell the people what you threw on the ice.
I have a Stanley 2006 Stanley Cup hat, the black one, the Stanley Cup championship hat, and I was wearing it that night. And it wasn't just because they did it against the team that shall not be named. Throwing your hat on the ice in a game is a bucket list thing for every fan who loves their team. And when he was skating in on the break, I stood up out of my chair. I was screaming. I thought, yeah, you put this one in the net. It's going to be crazy. He does. People see me. I'm a big dude. They see me charging out of the aisle, like out of the row, right? Everyone's backing up. They're all laughing. And one of those eyes get really big because I'm grabbing my hat, this 2006 Stanley Cup hat. I'm grabbing it. And they're like, you could hear it felt like you could hear the whispers. You're not going to throw that one, are you? And I charged down behind the glass of my seat, right behind the Hurricanes bench. and I fired it as hard as I could, and I couldn't have been happier. It sails out real nice and high and then takes a sharp left dive right at Seth Jarvis's feet. It was glorious. I couldn't have been happier. It was
You got to think that's one of the hats he probably keeps. You know, I mean, that's a 7.
I would hope
that hat
it
is
would
almost
be.
as old as Seth Jarvis, dude.
I mean,
Seth was 3 when that hat was made. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it was so great. It could have been any hat, really. I would have been equally happy, but throwing that hat on the ice, it just meant something. It's something special. It felt great.
I'll try and keep this quick. So my son has been getting into hockey more and more. During January, you know, he listens to the podcast. He helps, you know, when we're recording, he helps edit the episodes. And we were talking, and I talked about how the Hurricanes had scored more power, you know, shorties, more penalty kill points than power play points. And so the Hurricanes get that first, they take that first, you know, get the first power play. And he's like, no. And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is great. We're on the power play. He's like, no. They need to be shorthanded. And I'm like, you know, because I mean, you know, we all know, like, that's what they did was phenomenal, right? I mean, you just don't score 8 or 7, whatever it was, you know, shorties in a month. And so the whole night, every time the Canes on the power play, no, they need to take a penalty. So then Jarvis gets a second, right? Then Canes go shorthanded. And I look down, and all of a sudden I see Jarvis on the ice. And I literally reach over and I kind of grab the front of his shirt, of his jersey. And I'm like, watch closely. Now, it's just one of those things you just have a feeling, right?
Yeah.
The pass goes off the wall. Jarvis isn't alone. I'm like, from 30 feet away from the net, I'm like, he's going to roof this. It's in. There's no chance that this isn't going in. He goes in. Yeah. My son called that from, like, you know, whenever the first penalty was taken in the game. From then on, he's like, no, they need to be shorthanded to score. And he was elated. So for the next couple of days, everybody we talked to who asked him about the Hurricanes, he said, you know, I called it. And he did. I was sitting there like, I can't believe that they scored a shorthanded goal with me in person at, like, the one game I've been to in 5 years. And it's a hat trick goal. And it's Seth Jarvis's first hat trick. And my son's been telling me for 45 minutes that they just need to be shorthanded and they'll score.
It was just that it was fantastic. It sounds super corny or whatever. There's just a magic in the air, and you could feel it from the very, very start. Now, speaking of
Jacob, just real quick, I was going to ask Jacob. So Jacob, you are in Nova Scotia, obviously. So you weren't able to attend, but you watched it on TV. Did they show, like, did they go through, did you get to see the whole experience and Cam's speech and everything on TV, or
some of it? There were commercials that went in and out. So it was pretty annoying. But for the most part, like, we got to see most of it on TV. But it would, like, look like that the ceremony's kind of taking a pause, but then it would go to commercial and you come back and they're not anywhere near where they were when the commercial went on. So
it wasn't that long. I mean, come on, guys. Like, it's Cam Ward's night, right?
Yeah, for sure. One of the things, and I was going to ask you, Jacob, that the magic that we felt on Thursday continued right through until Saturday. And I wanted to get your take. Watching the game, watching the Stadium Series game, what was the vibe like? What were you hearing from the broadcast teams? Like, give it all to us. We didn't have any of that. We were enjoying the experience. So I'm curious to know if the experience, the joy, the fun, the best part of it all, if that was being accurately felt by the viewers around the world.
Yeah, absolutely. You could see as soon as the game turned on, and you could see 56,000 fans in the stands there. You could just see that everybody was having the best time ever. Obviously, afterwards, all of the negative stuff about, like, the parking and all the stuff that came out, none of that was on TV. So nobody at home watching knew any of this, and it looked like an incredible success, which in the end it still was. Obviously, when you have 56,000 people in one place, there's going to be some issues. But like just the whole showing of the game was just, it was all about how important it was for North Carolina, and kind of proving everybody wrong that says that they don't have fans and this and that. And then my favorite part about the Stadium Series is the next day, maybe 2 days later, with Carolina State and North Carolina. Their game had, I don't remember how many people it was, but
26,000.
Yeah, it's just insane numbers, and proving the world wrong. And that was the biggest takeaway, even from the broadcast. The broadcast wasn't talking about how they're surprised, but it's like, look at this hockey world, look what they can do. Yeah.
And which was, and for folks who weren't there, everything about the Stadium Series is built for the broadcast. It's built for the home viewer.
Yeah.
So on our side of the field, we couldn't hear any of the interviews. Like, we could see them up on the boards, but they weren't using the in-stadium audio system at all. So we literally couldn't hear any of the interviews. We couldn't hear anything the NHL folks were saying. We could hear the NC State band did a great job. So for us, like, you get the feel and the excitement of the crowd and all those things, but you don't get any of the things that you get on TV with, like I said, even player interviews and things. We couldn't hear a thing where I was sitting, which is fine, right? But it was, I watched it the next night on ESPN Plus and was really, I thought they did a fantastic job. And then, as you mentioned, NC State, UNC hockey are club hockey teams. Like, hopefully they'll get to go, hopefully they'll become NCAA teams at some point. But 26,000 people for a college club hockey game is more than, any NHL rink, right? I mean, that's a huge turnout.
Yeah, absolutely. It was and it's super impressive, even if it was NCAA, even if it was like one of the bigger name teams. But it's even more impressive, not just because it's in Carolina, but because they're such smaller teams. Like, it's amazing.
Yeah, it was just such a great experience. I think the one thing for me, or at least in my aspect, I was most excited for, because I had never been in a college football stadium before, and college football in the United States, along with football in general, is kind of king. It kind of reigns, you know what I mean? So you want to experience everything about it, and getting in there. I mean, I've been in football stadiums before. It's not, it's not a super big deal, but there's a different vibe for the college. I mean, we get in there and all of the band is, the NC State band is down there and they're ready to go. The dance team is there. They're ready to fire people up. They got guys firing up, men and women throwing up these flaming batons, and they're twirling, and there's things going on everywhere. It was nonstop entertainment, and just the whole vibe and experience in that place. It's just a great memory, that you hope. I mean, what was it? The one picture of Stormy being passed and crowd surfing. I mean, that kind of epitomizes the experience that we were all having. Stormy was up there, but it would have been all of us. Like, anyone in the building was being crowd surfed everywhere. Yeah. It was amazing.
My only complaint is, they should have opened the parking lots at like 8 a.m. Apparently that was an NC State decision. But
yeah,
we had a lot of fun. We got a chance to meet Mike Solarte in person at the Cam Ward game. Kurtu from Finland, who's been on the show, sat 2 rows behind me. In front of me was our friend Paul Lawson, also been on the show. His host and my good friend Brad Carpenter and his wife were also in 3. All the cool kids, no offense, right? We're in 302.
No, I understand.
And then on Saturday, got to see those folks again. Got to see Zach Bailey and Kat from the Surge Cast. Got to meet Colin from Colin Home Ice. Got to meet the folks from Shine Sports. Got to meet a bunch of folks who the list of people we were hoping to meet is a lot bigger than the people we actually got to meet. But I said all weekend, I said, we'll just have to come back in June.
Yeah,
For
and
June
that
hockey,
would be
right?
that would be very nice to have some June hockey. And to that end, let's talk about the games that followed that. All part of the streak, which sadly ended last night. But Jacob, how would you assess these last few games of the streak that they were on? These 3 games that they played that ended last night with unfortunate second loss of the season to Anaheim. What? Let's get your take on these games.
Well, I think you have to look at the game against Anaheim in a vacuum. They're on the second half of a back-to-back. They are. It's almost one of those like scheduled losses games. I think it's their second loss in 41 days. And like that's just insane on its own. I know we had the break in there, but 2 losses in 41 days, like you can't complain about it at all. 53 shots, and I know the whole buzz about this trade deadline is to get someone who can finish. And sure, according to all the advanced metrics, Carolina is close to the bottom of the league, if not very far in last in finishing and scoring. But they're still getting the job done. 53 shots. Like they got goalied. John Gibson isn't a nobody. And like, I don't know. It's tough to look at the scoreboard and see this, but like if you watched the game, it was a trap game. Like one of you mentioned right before we started recording, it was a trap game. And it's just one of those games that you just have to clean up and move on. And especially after a great game against Ottawa, like it's not like the Canes didn't have it. It was the second half of back-to-back that they played. They played great both nights. And so it was just they ran into a goalie.
Some of those saves that Gibson made were just, insert cliche here, like larcenous. How it was go-go gadget legs on some of those ones that just managed to kick out. Still don't know how, like Slavin's got to be, like Gibson's going to be in Slavin's nightmares, because Slavin had at least 3 chances that were sure goals on any other night that Gibson found the way to stop it. And it happens. I think like here's the thing. I'm looking at Freddie Anderson, who took the loss last night, only on 15 shots, allowed 3 goals, except he made a lot of 10 bell saves too. Like that could have been a lot worse situation than the 3-2 result that was there. Freddie played well too. It could have been so much worse.
Yep. And like you said, like it's 3 goals on 15 shots. On paper, that's terrible. But those other 12 saves he made, like they were all super important. Like not every goalie can make those saves that Freddie made last night. And it's just it goes to show that like save percentage and goals against average, they don't really mean anything. It's a good way to look at where they're at, kind of. But like if you're having that low of a save percentage, everyone's just gonna say, "Oh, you had a terrible game," but it wasn't a terrible game. So
no, it sure wasn't. Go ahead, Brad.
I was gonna say, random stat for me. So number 1, the Hurricanes' goal differential is up to plus 47, and that's since it really took off there in December. So it's because they were hovering. They were negative there for a little while, and they were hovering around 0.
They were.
What's surprising to me? I know plus minus isn't like the end all be all stat. And to me, unless it's really good or really bad, the Hurricanes have 1 player who isn't a plus, and that's Dylan Coughlin at -1. Really? Everybody else is at least at 0, and there's only I think 1 person at 0. Everybody else is a plus on the team. Isn't that amazing?
The Hurricanes all year have been great 5-on-5. I mean, right. The areas where they've struggled is on the power play. The penalty kill is now they have the most shorties in the league because of that big flourish. 8 shorthanded goals in such a short amount of time went from somewhere to the bottom to right to the top. And this is what we've been used to. We've seen the shorthanded capabilities that this team has had in seasons past, especially Aho. But it was, I mean, 5-on-5, we're pretty happy. And I guess that brings us to the next thing. We've all been shouting for Bo Horvat, Timo Meier. We've wanted someone to fill in the gap that we lost when Pacioretty went down. It turns out now that Timo might not be an option for us. Jacob, you have info on this?
I actually have a bit more info than you do right now.
Okay.
So it looks like Vegas is out on Meyer as well. They just acquired Ivan Barbashev. So that takes them out. That just happened. And Carolina, according to the San Jose Sharks, Carolina is out. Vegas and New Jersey had better offers on the table. Carolina said, this is our top dollar. San Jose said, that's not enough, you're out. So all fingers are pointing to Timo Meier to New Jersey right now. So who do they look at now? Because Ivan Barbashev is gone. There was just another trade as well, Denis Gurianov for Evgeny Dadonov. So Montreal and Dallas swapped some struggling players. So not that either of them should have been on the radar of the Canes. But one player that I think the Canes are going to take a look at, and it might not be until the summer, but Jacob Vrana. I really like what Jacob Vrana brings. Obviously, it's not working in Detroit. And nobody's telling me anything. I haven't heard anything about Carolina and Vrana. But he's got next year at, I believe it's $5.5 million. So if he gets bought out this summer, I could absolutely see Carolina taking a flyer on him. He feels like he'd be a perfect fit. 1 year, $1 million, see what happens. Or even if Detroit will retain, pick him up for a 5th-round pick, 6th-round pick. But I think he would be a great fit. He's kind of exactly what they need. He has one of the highest goals per 60 minutes over the past 2 years. He's like top 5, I think. So
wow.
Yeah.
That would be, you see, this is where the analytics sometimes can help fill in the gaps in the stories. If you don't know enough, so like the numbers are there, they'll show it. I have to say, my question now though is, and you mentioned Vrana being someone that they could pick up at the end of the season. They might not land him before Friday. Friday's coming fast, and so the trades are picking up now. Like, we're getting more steam, we're seeing more movement. Here's a question: do the Hurricanes have to make a trade to solidify their spot as a contender? Can they stand pat while everyone improves headed into the playoffs?
I think so, especially on the wings. Like, everything has been looking at the wings. They got Max Pacioretty in the summer. They've been linked to Timo Meier. Like, obviously, they're going after a big name winger. I think a center would be great as well, and not even to make the offense better. I think their offense is fine. Like you said, that plus 47 goal differential is, I believe it's 3rd in the NHL. So scoring goals isn't the issue. Putting everything together on the power play, and I'm going to back up a little bit to that conversation. I think the biggest issue is they just need to be more simple on the power play. They're trying to be too fancy, trying to get too much going. But I think they just need to slow it down, play a very structured power play, see what happens. But yeah, for trade acquisitions, I don't think that they need to make a big improvement anywhere. They have been calling on some depth left defensemen. I guess they don't really want DeHaan being the guy going into the playoffs, or they want options at least. And I guess they don't look at Coughlin as that option anymore. But yeah, I think they would like to improve on their center depth. I like all 4 centers. None of them are true second line center though. Stastny has been great. there. I really like Kotkaniemi. I mean, he's been heating up as of late. But yeah, if I mean, it's too late. But if they could have gotten Ryan O'Reilly or Jonathan Taves if he was healthy, or any of these players, I think that'd be a very smart move. I do look at Sean Monahan and his health. Wonder how he would fit in. Because the center there wouldn't need to drive the line. Nikas and Svechnikov would be able to do that, but Monahan would slide in as a great complementary piece to them. So I don't know. I think they should prioritize a center more than a winger right now.
Brad,
I know the Canes have been linked potentially to Schmaltz is one. So previously my thought was if they go after somebody like Timo Meier, that's probably the one deal they're making. They might try and squeeze in that seventh defenseman. I think it's more about not trusting Coughlin and just having that extra guy versus DeHaan. Because I thought DeHaan's played pretty well. Maybe this is good for the Canes, right? You don't spend, a whole bunch of millions and millions on one guy. Maybe you can pick up, a couple of folks. Maybe you get, a little bit cheaper guy to help you out with some scoring. You also pick up maybe a little better quality extra defenseman so you can work, because guys are going to get hurt, right? It's the playoffs. It's just a matter of, we all know the Stanley Cup is usually a battle of attrition, and very few people get through it unscathed. A lot of it depends on how hurt, a player is willing to play and kind of who guts it out. So, the East is so good. That's the only thing, right? I mean, if Timo goes in to New Jersey and plays well, they're going to be very good. I don't know that I think the Canes can still beat them even with the roster that they have, but it becomes a real dogfight at that point.
New Jersey's frightening as it is right now. Never mind adding a finisher like Meier to that. I mean, honestly, that to me, this is the weird thing about all of this. The Hurricanes are in the enviable position of being number 2 in the league, and they haven't even had all of their players yet, all of their assets. They had all of their assets for all of 3 games, like 3 games. That was it. And they're still doing well. So there's that one stance that says, look at how great we've been. Why mess up with the chemistry? If it's not broke, don't fix it. There's, they're doing great there. On the other hand, we are great as we are now. We can always be better. And at a time like this, where everyone around you are making the adjustments, adding assets to their squads to get fired up for this, everyone else getting better talent-wise all around you, and you staying pat just doesn't seem
ideal.
It doesn't. No, it's not like, and I'm wondering, like, for me, defensive wise, if we're looking at one extra defenseman, I've told you this, Brad, a number of times, and I'll throw it out there again. I like the idea of Shen out of Vancouver, who at $850,000, he has tons of experience. He's got 1 or 2 rings, I think. It's 2 rings. I can't remember, but he's got the leadership, and those are the things that you want to add. At $850,000, more than enough cap space. So throw something Vancouver's way, see if they'll deal him, even if he's unrestricted, and he is an unrestricted free agent.
Right. So
at the end of this,
a pick
for a rental, not a big deal. Not a big deal. So go after him and shore up the D a little bit. That'll be fine.
You know what's really scary?
What's that?
The New York Rangers. So I fully expect Kane to become a New York Ranger, which makes their offense more potent, but they still don't really have a defense outside of Shesterkin, in my opinion. That's going to be their Achilles heel. They're the 6th or 7th team in the East right now. I think they're the 6th team in the East. They would be 1 point out of being the best team in the Western Conference. That's how good the Eastern Conference is this year.
Isn't it?
The Eastern Conference is 6 loaded teams, and then, I don't want to say garbage teams, but then, then you have 10 teams that are not nearly as good. And the Western Conference is all kind of, I don't want to say mediocre, but like I said, the New York Rangers would be 1 point behind Dallas, I think it is, or Vegas, excuse me. They'd be at 1 point ahead of Dallas for tops in the Western Conference, which shows you how tough it's going to be to get out of the Eastern Conference. Whoever wins the Eastern Conference Finals should be the odds-on favorite to win the cup, right?
Jacob, I'm going to get your take on this. Is the lopsidedness of East versus West that Brad hit the nail on the head about? Is that more because there are super teams in the East that are beating the crap out of the, riffraff in their division over all of the teams in the West being relatively close to one another, talent-wise, skill-wise, playing, and they're just dogging it out, like just fighting it out, trying to get things, you know what I mean? Like that makes those games are harder to win, and you can rack up the points with Carolina and New Jersey beating the crap out of Columbus and the team that shall not be named, and you just keep going on. Philly, like so you just fire those points through the roof, right? Whereas in the West, maybe it's a little bit tighter. What's your take there?
I actually completely disagree. So in the East, you named the only 3 teams that are out of the playoff race, 60 games into the season: Philadelphia, Montreal, Columbus. In the West, you have Vancouver, Arizona, San Jose, Chicago, Anaheim. Even St. Louis is pretty well out of it. In the Eastern Conference, there are, well, let me count here. There are 7 teams within 5 points of a wild card, including the 2 that are in it. So there's 5 below the wild card that are within 5 points. And in the West, it's whoever's in right now is pretty well who's staying in. Calgary's going to make a little bit of a push. So I think there's a lot more teams to pick on in the West. And which, I don't know, it doesn't really make sense why the points would be so sorry, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but why the East has so many more better teams, and the West is all kind of very, very close. And even so, Vegas is first in the West. Minnesota is in second wild card, only 6 points behind.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Jacob hit it, because the worst team in the whole league is Columbus, right?
Yeah.
The 15th team in the East is the Montreal Canadiens. There are 5 teams in the West worse than the Canadiens, as bad as the Canadiens are.
Man,
below them is still Vancouver, Arizona, San Jose, Chicago, and Anaheim. I mean, it's brutal. And kind of a non sequitur, but one thought that just hit me is, in the playoffs, generally whistles go a little more into pockets, right?
Yeah.
You let the players play a little more. That is a huge advantage for Carolina, because 5-on-5, Carolina is the best team in the league.
They are.
The Bruins are a better team because of their power play, and their net power penalty kill, and the Carolina's net penalty kill are 88.9 and 88.3. So the penalty kills are practically the same. So in 5-on-5 hockey, the Hurricanes, in my opinion, are the best team as they stand right now. So a lot of what may determine the Hurricanes' fate this year is going to be, can they stay out of the box, right? And also, they don't necessarily need to be on the power play. What they need is just to play 5-on-5 games, which is something you tend to get a little more of in the playoffs. So a lot of Carolina's fate, I think, in this year's playoffs, if they stand pat, is going to be, do those whistles get put away?
It's always hard to say with officiating, and try not to crack on the officiating, because that's just a tough job. Everything happens so fast in hockey, and there's inconsistencies a lot of times in how things are called, but you want to give it's a tough job. It's a tough job. Everyone hates you. You're never going to be right or agreed with on everything. It's just one of those things. You're smiling a lot, Brad. What's that?
I don't know if either of you have seen this. Did either of you see the clip last night of Wes McCauley taking out Brad Marchand last night?
I did
Yeah,
not
Great
see
hit. It was a
that.
beautiful hit. If
It
we
was
can get more of that in the playoffs, this becomes much easier, right? If West just levels Marchand a couple of times, this becomes a whole nother ball game. But I just wanted to bring up, like, for all the hate the referees take, I think last night, a few people probably raised a pint to Wes McCauley there.
There you go. Might be the only time he gets a pint raised to him.
Sure.
I'll tell you that much. Oh my goodness. This, you know what? Just a quick look ahead. Just 2 games this week before we get back together here in the storm cellar to hash it out, and it's a trip out west to we're going to take on Vegas, correct? What are the 2 games? Wednesday and Friday is
Vegas and Arizona.
Vegas and Arizona. So Vegas, a strong team, and Arizona, who's given us fits this season again. What are we looking ahead to? Vegas getting better with that trade. We've never had breaking news in the in the storm cellar like this. This is pretty fantastic that it happened. So thank you for that, Jacob. What do you think looking ahead?
Well, so losing Stone is pretty tough for Vegas, but like already adding in Barbashev, and Darren Dreger is tweeting out right now that don't count them out on Timo Meier still. So Timo Meier still could be headed there, but for this week, I mean, who knows by Wednesday what the roster looks like, but I do think that it's going to be a pretty evenly matched game because Vegas is definitely like still a very good team. They're dealing with some goaltender issues right now, but they're still winning all their games. And as for Arizona, it's tough because I see it very potentially being another game just like last night with Anaheim. It's a team that you should win against, but you can almost look at your calendar and say, this is a scheduled loss. We're going to get goalied again. We're going to do this. But I don't, regardless of what happens this week, even if they drop both games, there's nothing to worry about. But I do think that they can definitely pull out both wins. It's a very quiet week for the team, and especially with the trade deadline. It gives Don Waddell lots of time to do some work. But yeah, like the games this week aren't going to be super important, although you do want to keep your lead against the New Jersey Devils. So
yeah, that's a big one. You want to stay out ahead of the Devils and Vegas. They like the shiny new toys, don't they? I mean, they make bigger trades. Like they just make big trades all the time, and they want. You don't spend a lot of time in Vegas if you're playing on the squad. They'll move things out. They want new all the time adjusting. It's got to be tough for the coach, right? Because when you have different players all the times, you don't know what you're expecting. I would prefer that Meier stay in the West. Frankly, yeah. That would make me feel a little bit better. So get it done, Vegas. Make that happen. Yeah, no doubt. Yeah. The Mullet Arena game. That's going to be Carolina will now have experienced the extremes on both ends as far as fans in the stands in 1 year. The Stadium Series and the 5,000 strong in the Mullet Arena. Now, I have not watched a game shot in there. Have you, Jay? Have you seen a couple of games broadcast from the Mullet? And can you tell the vibe is way different? Like, what's the story there?
Knowing that there's only 4,500 people in the stands, 4,600, it's actually quite impressive. Because the way they angle it, you don't see any empty seats. You don't see you don't see the back of the stand. So it's a pretty high camera angle. And they're quite loud in there too. I don't know if they have microphones by all of the seats or something. But like those 4,600 university students that are watching a hockey game are just as loud as if you go to the Bell Center. Like it's quite impressive on TV at least. And yeah, so you can't really tell. I do like that they have the ASU logo in the middle of the ice still. But it is fun to watch. It's one of those things that, like, for an Eastern Conference team, you know what? Yeah, I want to play there once. Just see what it's like, whatever. And fans should feel the same way about, yeah, you know what? I kind of want to watch this game and see what it's like. So yeah,
it should be an interesting one. Brad, what do you think? I mean, and that Arizona game, it is the day of the trade deadlines.
It is that's the big one, right? So we'll either hear something. I mean, so that's at 9:30. The trade deadline is on Friday the 3rd at 3 p.m. Eastern. The Vegas game will be a lot of fun. I think that's a good test. Just, kind of stretch your legs after, I think it's 3 days off. Arizona definitely is a trap game. Everybody seems to underestimate those guys, and they always come back. And then March gets really difficult for the Canes, right? You get Tampa Bay on the 5th. You basically have a game almost every other day. Tampa Bay, you got Vegas again on the 11th, and then you have Jersey on the 12th. So you have Jersey on the back half of the back-and-back. Then you have Winnipeg, Toronto that week. Then you have a 3-day back-to-back against the Rangers. And then you have Toronto, Boston, and Tampa Bay again to finish out the month. I mean, March is going to be a brutal month for the Hurricanes. The good news is as you go toward playoffs, April is looking, I don't want to say easy, but April is certainly not going to be on the level that March is with the level of competition, which means hopefully guys can get some rest, get healed up, because that's, like as we mentioned earlier, it's a war of attrition to win the Stanley Cup. And the Hurricanes schedule was set up to give them some real honest feedback in March, and then 2 weeks in April to, try and let some guys heal up, try and get some cohesiveness if you do bring in somebody sometime this week. And then it's playoffs. We got 6 weeks of hockey left, folks. It's coming down to the wire. So I'm really excited about it. I'm waiting to see what the Hurricanes are going to do. I think they're going to make moves. It's not going to be, a blockbuster Timo Meier style move. But, GM Don Waddell always seems to find a way, right? He picks up somebody and we're like, oh, what's that guy going to do? Ty Domi last year wasn't on anybody's radar for the Hurricanes that I know of, and came in and didn't really do a lot, but then, comes up in game 7 and scores 2 to put the Bruins away.
Anyone
so he'll always have my respect for that.
Exactly.
Really
Anyone who hacks on Max Domi. Yeah, no, that's okay.
I'm old, folks. Just
Ty was in the stands for every game.
I know.
So I mean, he was supporting, so I can understand why. Yeah, Max gets a pass from me because of what he did in game 7. If anything, that's why you make those trades, someone to make a difference. And in game 7, he was the man. So it worked out great. So he gets a pass. I'd sure like to see a deal. I would really prefer that they not stand pat. But if they do, clearly there's a reason for it. And then you just got to buckle down and get ready for what is going to be a sensational final quarter of the season. Jacob, thank you so much for joining us. I love this. Is 2 weeks and 2 times in a row now we had experts, journalists joining us in the storm cellar, and you are providing information. First of all, we had breaking news in the storm cellar. That was the first thing. That's pretty awesome. But you're providing perspective that we don't always see or hear. And so thank you so much. You're making the show that much better.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm very happy to come on. I mean, I wish we could have done this 2 weeks ago, but today's been great as well. Again, I apologize for that, but
no worries.
We're both dads. We get it. We've been there, right?
Yeah, I'm always happy to come on. Feel free to ask whenever, and yeah, I'm more than happy to.
Round tables in the future with the experts, Brad. I think that's something.
I think this summer we'll definitely try and do our round table idea, get that done. We won't be recording, I think, every week because you need a little, right? You need a little disconnect and whatnot. But
sure.
I still have to put together the Stadium Series audio, so I'm going to carve out time to get our Stadium Series discussions out sometime this week, which will be a lot of fun because I haven't heard any of the audio really yet. So I've heard a little.
It's going to be great. I love the chats that we've had, and especially with the the
Surgecast.
Surgecast. Thank you, Surgecast. It was coming to me. It's what 9:40 in the morning. I'm sorry, guys.
Well, you worked like the whole time you were in North Carolina. I was like,
I was working.
I'm on vacation with my family. Ray's like, I got this audio from this guy and this lady, and I got audio from this group, and I'm like, I had Bally High for lunch and dinner.
Yeah, you're lucky. I didn't get Bally High.
Next time,
I got to come down.
Next time,
I got to come down there again. That's all there is to it.
Come down in June. We'll go to Bally High.
The Stanley Cup Final Bally High pre-game meal. That's what I would enjoy for sure.
So
it's been a great show, and Brad, we've covered so much. There is something missing though. Something missing. What is it? Go Canes.
Go Canes. Thank you everyone for tuning in. Ray and I greatly appreciate your support in helping us produce an informative and fun podcast. As always, we'd like to say that we believe hockey is for everyone. Whether you're a Caniac or a bunch of jerks, doesn't matter, as we're just a couple of jerks anyway. We would love to hear your questions, comments, and suggestions. We will do our best to answer anything hockey related. You can reach us via email at stormcellar97@gmail.com. On Twitter, we are at stormcellar97, and on Facebook at facebook.com/stormcellar97.